Mankind and the elements. For some, it's an uncomfortable bond.
Water's very powerful, it's very deceiving, and you have to have great respect for it.
For others, when weather strikes, inspiration begins.
We're just 9 and 11-year-old girls who did a science project.
These are the people who challenge nature, seek out its limits, reveal its secrets, and embrace its awesome power. In this episode, we'll meet two sisters whose ambitious science experiment took them up and out of this world.
I hope that our projects teach them that they can do whatever they want if they put their heart into it.
A woman climbing to outrageous heights in order to clean the nation's wind turbines.
You're basically doing construction work on ropes.
And a photographer wading in the icy waters of the Great Lakes to shoot what he calls liquid mountains.
Where I'm at, it's more like a giant washing machine.
These pioneers of the great outdoors ahead on That's Amazing. When you think of the Great Lakes, you may not expect this. These photographs of magnificent towering waves weren't taken in the Pacific or the Atlantic. They were taken at Lake Erie.
The thing that I find amazes a lot of people that aren't familiar with them is the sheer size of them. I've been with lots of people that for the first time when they're seeing them, they're like, really, this isn't an ocean?
Dave Sanford is a professional photographer from Ontario, Canada. To do his work, Sanford waits for the perfect weather conditions, heading out into fierce winds and ice-cold water to make his masterpieces.
Lake Erie is in the most southern part of Ontario. It's the smallest of the Great Lakes. As far as the depth goes, it's the shallowest by far.
Being a large lake, but relatively shallow compared to the other Great Lakes, creates unique wave conditions. The waves on Lake Erie tend to be closer together, with a lot more of the violence on the white water on top.
There's a lot of people that have lost their lives on Lake Erie. There's been estimated somewhere over 8,000 shipwrecks on Lake Erie over the years.
At her worst, Lake Erie can be murderous. In fact, when she's murderous, we call her a widowmaker.
To be a nature photographer, I think that one of the number one things you have to have is patience. The first wave photo that I posted from Lake Erie, I came home that night and I posted an image, and right away the number of comments on it, it was crazy compared to what I normally would get, and the number of likes. If I know I'm going in the water, it starts from like the moment I wake up in the morning. There's a lot of mental preparation. It is an adrenaline rush too, for sure. Like, I have no idea how things are going to unfold. It's before the sun's even coming up and you can see the water in the distance and those waves exploding into the air, and it's just such a cool rush. The window of opportunity to photograph the lakes for me is generally from maybe mid-October through early December. It's the best time of the year when you still have that warm air masses that are around this region, and then those cold air masses that are coming from up north that give you these really prime conditions. Obviously, weather changes and it's constantly changing. The biggest factor is wind speed and wind direction. A southwest wind is the best, and minimal wind speeds, I'm usually looking at around 30 miles an hour at the bare minimum. At the high end of it, you're actually getting into Category 1 hurricane level winds, over 70 miles an hour. It's a crazy mess of water, and that's when you're getting these waves that are upwards of 30 feet. The tough thing about lake waves is it's not like ocean waves where you have sets that come in and then there's a bit of a lull. Lake waves are constantly pounding. You virtually have like 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds between each wave. And where I'm at, it's more like a giant washing machine. It's not easy. You're kind of cold after a while too. That water is only around the 50-degree mark. There's days where there's ice in the water and you're literally like, what am I doing? Like, water's very powerful, it's very deceiving, and you have to have great respect for it. You can get pulled under and pulled out with a rip current. It's obviously a lot stronger than you are. You have to know your limitations and know when to say when. The waves that are generated from this refraction off the pier, those are the waves that I'm photographing, where you have two masses of water, two waves that are moving in opposite directions that are meeting and colliding, and they'll hit and they twist and they turn, and it's a phenomenal thing to see. It's just building this massive liquid mountain that literally lasts all of like a second, if that. Sometimes it's a fraction of a moment in time. And that's one of the things that I love, is the challenge of capturing that moment.
Dave Sanford's liquid mountain photographs have appeared in several online publications, including the Washington Post. He also sells prints on his website.
I guess one of the things that I really hope is that my photos can allow people to appreciate what they have as far as nature goes, and learn to love it and cherish it and embrace it and protect it.
Not very many people really know, but the Great Lakes has thousands of shipwrecks. In Wisconsin, for sure, we know we have 750 historic shipwreck losses. My name is Caitlin Zant, and I'm a maritime archaeologist with the Wisconsin Historical Society. I would say the main goal of what we do in maritime archaeology is to preserve our maritime history and also the history of the United States in general. The ships are quite sturdy, but they've also been underwater for up to 100, 150 years. Our shipwrecks don't disappear over time like they do in the oceans. The fresh water that's very cold actually does a really good job at preserving these shipwrecks. One of the really great things about Lake Michigan that makes it really unique is the fact that you do have fresh, clear water. You can see many times, especially on deep wrecks, 100 to 150 feet. When you are down there looking at a shipwreck, you start to think of all the sailors that sailed on it, or if it was a passenger ship, the passengers that happened to be on it. You can still find pieces of clothing in certain areas, buttons, shoes, and so that really gives insight to the lives of these sailors. There's definitely a little bit of a thrill of discovery. When we go down on a ship, even on a ship that we think we know what it is, there's still always that little sense of excitement that you're going to find something that no one else has seen before.
You're likely to spot them only in the most remote of places, where the wind blows fiercest. Giant wind turbines. They're increasingly supplying more and more of our clean energy, and when they break down, they need to be fixed fast. It's a job only a few people are equipped to handle. Those who are afraid of heights need not apply.
You're basically doing construction work on ropes. Most people think, God, you're insane. That that's totally dangerous. But actually, it's statistically safer than driving to work. When you're driving past wind turbines on the highway, you may never know that there's somebody up there dangling, but next time you should look up there because you might see me.
Jessica Kilroy is a rock climber. but she makes her living as a wind turbine technician, repairing damaged turbine blades on towers that are as tall as 350 feet.
It's easy to do this job safely. You just have to do it carefully. I'm a rock climber, and it's obvious that when you're rock climbing all the time, you're not making any money. You end up living in your van and wondering how you're going to pay the bills. Rock climbing and blade repair require the same skills. Being able to have no fear of heights, be comfortable on ropes, as well as being able to figure out how to get yourself out of a weird situation.
Here in Plymouth, Massachusetts, the average wind speed is 20 miles per hour, but these turbines can easily operate at winds twice that strength. Since wind farms are built in remote areas, the turbine towers themselves are often the tallest structures for miles. This can make them perfect lightning rods. Towers have lightning protection systems that ground electricity, but sometimes lightning exits out of the blade, damaging its fiberglass exterior. Blades can also crack due to weather erosion from dust, rain, snow, and ice, exposing its wooden interior to corrosive moisture. If left unchecked, the blades will weaken and eventually break off the tower.
That's the main problem, and we don't want blades just breaking off. That's usually why we repair them as soon as possible. Usually you see like a small dark spot, and that's where lightning has struck, and then you can grind into it and look further and see how deep it goes. We repair the fiberglass using sanders and grinders and crowbars or whatever you need to get the job done. It's really similar to surfboard repair, except there's 350 feet of nothingness beneath me. You're on the blade, and you straddle it, and the wind is bucking you around, and you're on a bull. I feel like I'm in the rodeo. I think it's easy for people to look at me and think, blonde chick, climber, life must come easy for her. But I've had to fight for this life. I was born with my bones not aligned correctly. I had to wear straight leg braces up until high school. The doctor said I could not do so many things. They said, you can't do this, you can't do that. And like, my dad is a climber. Back in the 80s and the 90s, my dad and his friends were out climbing big walls and putting up first ascents in the Tetons. And I was just like, dude, you guys are the coolest ever, and I want to be you guys. I had so many years as a kid of just looking at climbing magazines and watching my friends running around outside, jump roping, playing basketball, doing all the things that I wanted to do. That part's hard. Sorry. I decided I'm not going to let people's limits be my limits, and I decided to go so much further past what I even thought my own limits were. The first thing I usually do is harness up. There's a ladder in the inside. It's 350 feet tall, and you just climb every rung of that ladder all the way up to the top. The view from the top is expansive and just awesome. You're the tallest thing around. You can get butterflies in your stomach a little bit. There is outside risk with this job. There's adverse weather conditions, as well as forest fires. This summer, I was on a wind turbine where a wildfire just came rolling through. We bailed really quick, and when we were out, driving away, I have a picture out the window, and the wind turbine was just like swept up in the fire. I feel blessed to be able to be in some of the most beautiful places in the world, except I get to help the environment. I get to feel like I'm actually contributing to the green energy movement.
There are over 4,400 wind turbine technicians in the United States, with jobs expected to double in the next 10 years.
Next time you're passing a wind turbine, look close, look real close. You might see a little speck up there, and that little speck might be me, living my dream.
It's our generation's canary in the coal mine. A disorder called colony collapse is ravaging our bee population by 1/3 each year, endangering our future.
The colony collapse disorder is a mystery to scientists. It's not one thing that's killing them. I think it's everything we are doing in nature.
With nearly 1/3 of the American diet made up of crops pollinated by honeybees, beekeepers across the globe are struggling to protect their colonies.
The commercialization of beekeeping
Full of honey.
is hanging on a very fine thread. The bees, if they go, we are in such trouble.
But in a tiny town in the Blue Ridge Mountains, Gunter Hauk works to change our relationship with bees to ensure our mutual survival.
A crisis is always a great blessing because a crisis always tells us that the path we are on is not the right one. When you look into beekeeping, everything that was invented in the last 100 years was invented for the bottom line of beekeeping.
The overuse of pesticides, the development of monoculture farming have all done a pretty hard number on the pollinators that we do rely on for our food.
A monoculture is a field of plants where only this plant exists, nothing else.
Monoculture farming is widely used to increase agricultural efficiency. Over time, it can lead to accelerated crop infestation and disease, requiring increased use of pesticides. Industrialized bees are shipped thousands of miles from crop to pollinate vast monoculture fields.
The bees being trucked from apples in New York State to Maine for the blueberries and then back down to Florida. That's like us eating only broccoli for 1 month and the next month we only eat wheat and so on. We would not be healthy.
The commercial beekeeping world is not resisting change because they don't care that their bees are having a hard time. It's because changing their practices would make their jobs and careers unsustainable. People like Gunter, who are trying new things on a relatively small scale, are adding valuable perspective and maybe someday a path forward.
At Gunter Hauk's honeybee sanctuary, localized beekeeping methods demonstrate hope for honeybee health.
A honeybee sanctuary, it's a contemporary idea. Honeybees did not need a sanctuary until very recently.
We work with bees in a highly unconventional way.
We don't need to ship our bees in order to be successful. A localized bee is the strongest bee.
We have an apiary here with 35 colonies. We are on 25 acres planting things for the bees so that the bees can forage on a lot of different plants that are good for them and good for us. Bees, they're actually sun creatures. They don't fly out at night, only after sunrise, and they go home before the sun sets. Climate change and the warming has definitely an effect on the bees.
According to Hauk, warmer winters play a role in disrupting the rhythms of a healthy hive.
On a normal year,
Puff in there, please.
a hive might need only 10, 15 pounds of honey to survive the wintertime. When it's warm in the wintertime, but there's no forage for them to gather outside, they're eating a lot of honey, but they're not bringing anything else in. So you have trouble with starving. Many beekeepers in our area lost 80% of their colonies last winter due to this up and down. And our losses are only 5 to 10%.
So from below you can see brood on all frames.
We can actually leave all the honey for the bees that they need to go through the winter. We really only take the surplus. We actually cater to their needs, and the result is that they are very healthy. There is a natural harmony in all of creation, and it is all interrelated. The bees can actually teach us so many things. One of the things we can learn is really to serve is better for life. It's a full hive. We don't rely on asking the bees, what can I get out of you? We actually can serve the bees and ask the question, what do you really need to be healthy?
I definitely look up to my sister. She has a lot of great things that I can learn from, and I think she's an awesome older sister. Ow. Thank you, Mei. Kimberly is my best friend. She's never going to be replaced. I like to do martial arts, and then I also like to do basketball. I like to do archery and play piano. I have a lot of favorite subjects. I like math and English and social studies and science and technology. I like technology the best. These are some of the programs that I did, but I also really like science. I like challenges. We saw some videos of people doing weather balloon launches online. We thought that it would be a really fun family project to do. A weather balloon is basically just a very large balloon. They're used to see what the weather is going to be. So they send up different instruments attached to the bottom of the weather balloons, and they'll transmit the data and saying, oh, it's gonna be partly cloudy. There are 16,000 weather balloons launched every day around the world. The weather companies, the forecasters, only recover 30% of them. The other 70% are still floating in space. No, they're not. Well, they're still paused. Somewhere. They're somewhere in the earth. Try not to interrupt me there. This is our Loki LEGO launcher, the first spacecraft in the Young Stuff space program. For the first launch, we didn't really have a goal. We just wanted to get it off the ground. We didn't really went up. Understand as much science. Then we were kind of just letting go of it and hoping that the calculations were right. We call it the Loki LEGO launcher because Loki is our cat. Our flight computer keeps track of a number of things, including altitude, latitude, longitude, speed, temperature, pressure, voltage, current, and power. There is a lot of data that we can learn from. The first launch went to 78,000 feet. The images were awesome. When we first saw them, we screamed. It's just the blackness of space, and then there's Loki sitting there in the middle of it, right on the horizon. The first media that kind of wrote an article about us was a local tech news website called GeekWire. And then someone from the Washington Post saw it, and so they wrote an article about it. And then other people saw it, and they wrote articles about it.
You're gonna have to bring the Loki LEGO launcher.
No! No way! No way, seriously?
You're gonna meet the president.
Our parents told us that we were going to the White House Science Fair.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the White House.
When he actually walked through the doors, we were all in complete awe and admiration.
Hey guys.
Because this is President Obama. He was really easy to talk to. Yeah. He was really friendly.
What do you guys have here?
So we built a spacecraft called the Loki LEGO launcher, and we sent it up to 78,000 feet.
That's crazy.
He talks to all of these famous world leaders, and he makes decisions that affect the fate of our country. And we're just 9 and 11-year-old girls who did a science project. This is a rough drawing of the flight computer. And we'll probably put the VI sensor here. I'm making some changes to our original design because we're adding some new components and taking off some. On the second launch, we added a bigger balloon because we wanted it to go higher and we also wanted it to go faster. We added an APRS radio tracker, which sent us location and altitude data in almost real time. However, the APRS might not be very accurate at ground level, so having the GPS unit as well is very helpful. We rewired the voltage/current/power sensor so it would connect to a solar panel that we installed on our spacecraft to measure how much current it was getting from the sun. And we had a hypothesis that as our spacecraft went higher, we would have more solar current because we thought that since there's less particles in the air, it wouldn't block the sun's rays. The last thing that we changed was our Lego minifigure. We thought that she would be a good role model because she's a girl who's strong and she's brave, and she doesn't give up even when things are hard. Soon, it was time for launch. 3, 2, 1, liftoff! We couldn't believe that it actually went 101,000 feet. I think we screamed again. Our current data was really interesting because our solar panel was producing more current as the altitude was going up, which indicated that our hypothesis was correct. Getting something correct, especially when you don't know that much about the subject, always feels good. I hope that more kids, especially girls, follow paths and do projects like ours in STEM. And I hope that our projects teach them that they can do whatever they want if they put their heart into it. They don't have to stick with whatever is girly or boyish. Girls are awesome and girls can do anything.
It's taken 6,000 years for nature to carve out these remarkable formations. The marble caves of Chile Chico are located on a peninsula of solid marble, bordering a remote glacial lake that spans the Chile-Argentina border. The lake is fed by rivers coming from several surrounding glaciers. As the glaciers melt and grow, the water slowly carves the marble, leaving behind masterpieces fit for a museum. The distinct bright blue waters are caused by suspended particles from the glaciers reflecting the blue part of the sunlight. Getting to this location isn't easy. It's a long journey requiring a flight, a 200-mile drive into the wilderness, and a boat ride just to get there. But it's worth it. The remarkable swirling patterns on the blue cave reflect the lake's blue waters, changing with the water levels and the seasons. Nature truly is the greatest artist.
Don't go anywhere. Being in a bald eagle nest is surreal. This is a wild animal. She's being rowdy. It's very capable of hurting you if you're not careful, so you have to take your time. A little rough, huh? Sorry about that. It's an experience that's hard to describe. My name is Jim Campbell Spickler. I'm a forest canopy ecologist and a wildlife biologist. And I'm pretty sure I have the best job in the world. My job is to climb into the eagle's nest and capture and work with chicks.
Yeah, he's a monster.
And the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to get blood samples. And we can use those blood samples to look at environmental contaminants and how they get into the bald eagle's food source.
Gonna make me chase you, huh? Why don't you come off there? Come down.
It's a challenging species to work with. It's got a really sharp hooked beak, and its talons are big and powerful, and you don't want to let them grab a hold of you because they can really do some damage.
All right, let's go down.
This is a wild animal, so you never know what can happen. The Channel Islands are an island chain off the coast of Southern California.
These guys don't look too bad.
They're a desert island system. You get out there and you can stand on top of these bluffs and you can see the Pacific, a whole 360-degree view of just the most beautiful ocean you can ever imagine. You've got not only bald eagles, you have peregrine falcons that are nesting on the sea cliffs.
Just tell me if she's coming in.
You've got a host of different seabirds, and it's just a magical place. Our research, it may look invasive, but really, one of our primary concerns is the safety of these young birds that we're handling. So we go to great lengths to ensure that we don't injure them and that when we put them back in the nest, they're just as well off as when we first encountered them.
I like you.
The bald eagle is our national bird, so it's quite an honor for me to get to work with this species. Quite often I'll just sit in that nest for a moment and just take in the view and just think, wow, you know, it's just an honor to get up there, be able to share that view and that experience with them just for that moment in time.
A tropa belladonna will kill you. Datura will put you to sleep forever. Aconitum will kill you. Laurel will produce cyanide and kill you. Every plant here in the poison garden is poisonous and has the ability to kill you. My name's Trevor Jones and I'm the head gardener of Alnwick Garden. This plant is giant hogweed. It will get up to around about 8 foot high. It's phototoxic, so it will burn your skin and give you blisters for up to 7 years. This garden is set in the wall garden of the old castle in Northumberland, UK. We would have around about 95 plants, and we're adding to the collection all the time. This plant is Aconitum, or monkshood. Wonderful blue flowers, but the whole of the plant is poisonous. The berries, crushed up and fed to you, will kill you. The leaves themselves will kill you also, as will the root and the stem. We have to obviously maintain the garden, so we have to tend the plants, and when we do that, we have to be very careful of the way we operate. So we have to cover some of our skin when we deal with particularly dangerous plants. This plant is laurel. It produces cyanide, and we all know what that'll do to you. So it's the brainchild of the Duchess of Northumberland. So rather than having a herb garden, she decided to create more interest and have a poison garden. They're very, very common plants. In fact, a lot of them are what we call cottage garden plants, and they're grown in many people's gardens, but people don't know how harmful they actually are. This is a tropa belladonna. 4 berries are enough to kill a child. People are intrigued by poisonous plants and often very worried when they come out because many of them will be growing these plants at home. They don't realise the powerful impact plants can have on us as humans.
Is it something that you find fascinating?
Definitely.
Why?
It's a good way to get rid of your wife. I don't know.
In this curious lagoon, the rivers may run red, but rest assured, it's water, not blood. Although you could be forgiven for confusing the two. The Red Lagoon is located 12,000 feet above sea level in an area of Chile so remote that it wasn't even known to the National Tourism Office until 2009. And maybe that's a good thing, because much like the pyramids in Egypt, the lagoon is believed to be cursed. Legend says that the waters are owned by the devil himself. The thermal temperature of the water at 100 to 120 degrees stops even wild animals from approaching it. Devils aside, what causes this blood-red water? Well, biologists studying the lagoon recently traced it to algae growing in the depths of the lake. Still, much of this lagoon remains a mystery. A visit to this place is a reminder that there's still much to marvel at on this planet.
I've had an absolute fascination with sharks since I was a little kid. I knew I wanted to be a marine biologist by the time I was 5, and I got to snorkel with my first shark when I was about 8 years old, and I was literally hooked on these awesome animals. I'm Jillian Morris. I am a shark conservationist, a shark diver, and an underwater videographer. I've traveled all over the world, and I have to say that Bimini has some of the bluest waters I've ever seen. All different shades. Some people joke about the 50 shades of blue in Bimini. The island is really, really small. It's about 6 miles long, but The world just below the surface is really what's incredible. That blue, crystal clear water is teeming with marine life and is the reason why we live on this tiny little island. The Great Hammerhead Dive Site is about 1/4 mile offshore. It's a place where in very shallow water, you're able to get in and see these very large sharks up close and personal. It's very rare to actually be able to be in the water with so many of them like we can here in Bimini, especially in crystal clear, shallow water. Unfortunately, sharks get a really bad reputation. They're not man-eating monsters. They're not mindless eating machines. They're actually really intelligent, social, incredible animals. They're also really incredible for the health of our oceans, which all of us rely on every single day. There's something really special about hammerheads. I have been in the water with some very big sharks, including great whites and tiger sharks, but nothing compares to the great hammerhead. The way they move, their power, their grace, they can turn on a dime, and they have those wide-set eyes. They're my favorite animal on the planet, and being able to dive with them as much as we do, I feel really, really lucky.
அவங்க பறக்கிறதுல ஒரு ஆனந்தம் நம்ம என்னதான் வச்சு வளர்த்தாலே அதில் கிடைக்காது அவங்களுக்கு.
In Chennai, India, there's a tiny camera repair shop run by a man named Joseph Sikar.
ஆனால் அந்த சேகர்ன்றது போயிடுச்சு. இப்போ வேர்ல்டு வைஸ் வந்து பேர்ட்மேன்ன்ற ஒரு.
Sikar got his nickname because every day he feeds thousands of hungry parakeets on the roof of his home.
இதுக்கு வந்து எந்த மோட்டிவேட்டிங் கிடையாது. அதாவது நம்மள மாதிரி அதுவும் ஒரு உயிர். நமக்கு எப்படி அப்பா அம்மா இருக்கிறாங்களா அவங்களுக்கெல்லாம் நாம தான் அப்பா அம்மா மாதிரி. அதனால் அதுங்களுக்கு ஒரு உயிர்.
The 2006 tsunami that hit Southeast Asia flooded parts of India and displaced thousands of birds. Sikar noticed a pair of parakeets outside his home and set some rice out for them. Then more started to show up, and well,
இப்போ இந்த ஃப்ளட்டு வந்தப்போ சென்னையில் வந்து ஃப்ளட் அப்போ வந்து ஏறக்குறைய வந்து ஒரு 8,000 parakeets வந்திருக்கு.
Feeding 8,000 parakeets twice a day is a great expense. Sikar spends about 40% of the money he makes repairing cameras to buy food for the birds.
என்னுடைய வளர்ச்சியை பொறுத்து தான் அவங்களுடைய சாப்பாடு.
But for the birdman of Chennai, there's more to life than money.
பணம் தான் வாழ்க்கை இல்லைம்மா. பணம் வந்து தேவை தான். பணமே வாழ்க்கை இல்லை. பணம் வந்து ஒவ்வொரு மனிதனுக்கு தேவை. ஆனால் தேவைக்கு மீறிய சில பேர் பணத்து மேலே ஏன் இப்படிலாம் ஆசைப்படுறாங்கன்னு ஒன்றும் தெரியல. ஏதோ ஒரு உயிரினங்களுக்கு, ஏதோ ஒரு மனிதர்களுக்கு எதுக்குன்னா ஒன்று உதவி செய்யணுன்ற மோட்டிவ் தான்மா இது காரணம். என்னுடைய காரணமே அதுதான். எல்லாம் வந்து ஒவ்வொருத்தருக்கு ஏதோ ஒரு முடிஞ்ச அளவு உயிரினங்களுக்கு, எந்த உயிரினங்களுக்காக மனிதனுக்காக இருந்தாலும் சரி, உயிரினங்கள் எதுக்காக இருந்தாலும் ஒரு உதவி வருது ஒன்றும் ஒரு இது இல்லை. அது உதவணுன்றது தான் என்னுடைய மோட்டிவ்.
Darkness is the canvas and the light is my brush. With light painting, you can create new worlds into darkness. My name is Hannu Huhtamo and I paint with light. I live in Finland. We have amazing nature here. We have long summer nights that are warm and full of light, but on the opposite there is also this dark part. It's called polar night. It starts in December and it lasts for about 50 days. The sun doesn't rise above the horizon at all. And for a light painter that is quite good. I do long exposure photography, which is a photographic technique that allows me to draw with light. The exposure times can vary from seconds to hours, and the idea is to use the light sources as brushes or pencils, and the dark surroundings are the canvas. When I start, I might do some sketches on paper. After that, I go to the location. I search for details that I want to emphasize. With some light treatment, it will start to look like a completely new place. Going to dark woods or to an abandoned house, you first think that, oh, I don't want to go there because there's just so nasty looking dark places. But through light painting, I have examined these places and they look beautiful. You see the place differently.